10 ancient discoveries that defy all explanation. You were taught that history is a straight line. Simple, logical, already figured out. But what if that's not true? What if pieces of the past don't just challenge what we know, they completely break it? Beneath the sands of Egypt, there are stone boxes weighing over 100 tons, carved with such precision that even modern machines struggle to replicate them. In India, a towering iron pillar has stood exposed to rain, heat, and time for over 1,600 years without rusting. And at the bottom of the sea, a corroded lump of bronze turned out to be a machine so advanced it could track the movement of planets with eerie accuracy, built more than 2,000 years ago. These aren't myths. They're real, documented, studied, sitting in museums, quietly defying explanation. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because it's not that scientists are ignoring these discoveries. It's that they don't fully understand them. The explanations feel incomplete, like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. So what if history isn't wrong? What if it's just unfinished? In this video, we're going to explore 10 ancient discoveries that don't fit the timeline we've been given, objects that shouldn't exist, knowledge that shouldn't have been possible, and mysteries that, even today, refuse to be solved. And we're starting with one of the heaviest and most unsettling discoveries ever found. Let's start in Egypt, beneath the desert at Saqqara. In the 19th century, archaeologists uncovered a hidden underground complex, long tunnels carved deep into the bedrock. Inside, they found something that shouldn't exist. Massive granite boxes, each weighing up to 100 tons, placed with eerie precision inside narrow chambers. The surfaces are polished so flat that modern engineers measure them in microns. The angles are nearly perfect. And the most unsettling part? Each box was carved from a single block of stone harder than steel tools can easily handle. Experts say they were burial containers. But no remains were found inside. No clear method explains how these objects were carved, transported over hundreds of kilometers, and lowered into tight underground spaces with almost no room to maneuver. Even today, replicating one would require advanced machinery, controlled environments, and enormous cost. Yet somehow, they did it thousands of years ago. Now shift to Peru, high in the Andes, at a site known as Sacsayhuaman. Enormous stone walls zigzag across the landscape. Some of the blocks weigh over 100 tons, fitted together so tightly that not even a blade can slip between them. There's no mortar, no gaps, just stone shaped with an almost surgical precision. The angles are irregular, complex, and perfectly matched, like a three-dimensional puzzle carved by hand. Historians suggest primitive tools and manual labor, but that explanation begins to crack under scrutiny. These stones aren't just stacked, they're engineered. Their shapes absorb seismic shock, allowing the walls to survive earthquakes that destroy modern buildings nearby. Whoever built this understood forces, stress, and stability in a way that feels far ahead of its time. Then there's the unfinished obelisk in Aswan, still attached to the bedrock. It would have been the largest ever created, estimated at over 1,000 tons. The surface shows smooth, deliberate cuts in one of the hardest stones on Earth, granite. Traditional explanations point to pounding stones and patience, but the precision and scale suggest something more controlled, more exact. And this pattern keeps repeating. Massive weight, impossible precision, materials that resist the very tools we believe they had. Each site tells the same story in a different language. This shouldn't be possible. And this is just stone. What happens when we move beyond it? Now step away from stone and weight and move into something far more unsettling: machines. Not symbols, not monuments, but devices built to function, to calculate, to do something with precision that feels almost modern. In 1901, off the coast of a small Greek island, divers stumbled upon the wreck of an ancient ship. Among statues and coins, there was a corroded lump of bronze, easy to overlook. But when it was examined years later, something impossible appeared inside: gears. Dozens of them, perfectly cut, interlocking, designed with intention. This was the Antikythera mechanism, a device over 2,000 years old that could track the movement of the sun, the moon, and even predict eclipses. It wasn't simple. It accounted for irregular orbits, using gear ratios so precise that similar complexity wouldn't appear again in Europe for more than 1,000 years. This wasn't an experiment. It was a finished instrument, built by someone who understood astronomy, mathematics, and mechanical engineering, a level that shouldn't have existed yet. And even more unsettling, it wasn't unique. Ancient writers described similar devices, suggesting this was part of a lost tradition. Then travel east to ancient Mesopotamia. In the ruins near Baghdad, archaeologists uncovered a small clay jar with a copper cylinder and an iron rod sealed inside. At first glance, it seemed insignificant, but when reconstructed and filled with a simple acidic liquid, it produced an electric current. What's now called the Baghdad battery predates modern electrical discovery by nearly 2,000 years. There's no clear explanation for its purpose. Some suggest electroplating, others medical use. But the deeper question remains. If they understood how to generate electricity, even in its simplest form, what else did they experiment with? And why is there no clear record of it continuing? Then consider ancient astronomy. Long before telescopes, certain civilizations tracked celestial movements with astonishing accuracy. Structures aligned perfectly with solstices. Calendars that predicted cycles down to the day. Knowledge of planetary motion that required long-term observation and precise calculation. This wasn't guesswork. It was systemized, refined, and passed down until somehow it wasn't. Each of these discoveries carries the same unsettling implication. These weren't isolated accidents or lucky guesses. They were built on understanding, on knowledge that was developed, refined, and then lost. Because that's the part we don't talk about enough. It's not just about how these things were made. It's about why the knowledge behind them disappeared, who built them, who taught them, and what happened to that knowledge afterward. And if they understood technology, what else did they understand? Now we move into something even harder to ignore. Because it's one thing to build something massive or even mechanical, but understanding materials at a level that resists time itself, that's different. In Delhi, India, there stands an iron pillar over 7 meters tall, exposed to rain, heat, and pollution for more than 1,600 years. And yet, it hasn't rusted, not in the way iron should. Modern steel structures corrode within decades without protection, yet this pillar has survived centuries with almost no decay. When scientists finally analyzed it, they found a unique composition, high phosphorus, low sulfur, creating a thin protective layer that heals itself over time, a natural form of corrosion resistance, something we only fully understood recently. But somehow, ancient metalworkers were already using it. They didn't just shape iron. They understood how it behaved. Then there's something even more precise. A Roman glass cup, known for a strange optical effect. Under normal light, it appears green. But when light passes through it, it turns a deep, glowing red. For centuries, no one understood why, until modern analysis revealed the truth. Embedded within the glass are nanoparticles of gold and silver, engineered at a scale thousands of times smaller than a grain of sand. These particles interact with light in a way that changes its color, a principle now used in advanced sensors and nanotechnology. We only began working with materials at that scale in the last few decades. They were doing it over 1,000 years ago. And then there are ancient preservation techniques, materials, alloys, and environmental choices that allowed objects to survive almost untouched for centuries, even millennia, metals that resist corrosion, structures that withstand earthquakes, artifacts that look as if they were made yesterday, not thousands of years ago. This isn't accidental. It's not luck. It's understanding. And that changes the question entirely. Because if ancient civilizations understood materials, chemistry, and environmental interaction at this level, then progress might not be what we think it is. Not a straight line of constant improvement, but something far more fragile. Something that can rise and disappear. We like to believe we are the most advanced point in history. But what if we're just the latest? What if knowledge doesn't always move forward, but sometimes it's lost, buried, and rediscovered? And if that's true, then maybe we're not uncovering new ideas at all. Maybe we're remembering old ones. We started with stone, massive, precise, almost impossible to recreate even today. Then we moved into machines, devices that calculated the movement of the heavens with a level of accuracy that shouldn't have existed. And finally, we saw materials, objects that resist time itself, built with an understanding we're only now beginning to rediscover. Piece by piece, the pattern becomes harder to ignore because these aren't myths. They're not stories passed down and exaggerated over time. These are real artifacts, documented, studied, preserved in museums you can visit, in places you can stand with your own eyes. And yet they don't fit, not neatly, not comfortably, not in the timeline we've been given, which leads to a different kind of question, a deeper one. Maybe the real mystery isn't how they built these things. Maybe the real mystery is why we forgot how. Because history doesn't just record what was discovered. It also hides what was lost. Civilizations rise, knowledge accumulates, and then something happens. Wars, collapses, transitions. And what once felt ordinary becomes impossible, then forgotten, then rediscovered centuries later as a breakthrough. What if progress isn't a straight line moving forward? What if it's a cycle? What if everything we call modern has existed before in forms we no longer recognize? That idea is uncomfortable. It challenges the way we see ourselves as the peak of advancement, the most informed generation to ever exist. But these discoveries suggest something else. That intelligence didn't start with us, and it won't end with us either. So the next time you hear that something is impossible or that ancient people couldn't have known, ask yourself a simple question. Are we discovering the future or remembering the past? And more importantly, what else have we forgotten? Let me know what you think.